Hello, welcome to Endemic Times. My name is Amira, and this is a continuation video on the global food crisis and how that is affecting different developed and underdeveloped nations across the globe. In this video, I'm talking about Ethiopia, a country that is not discussed in mainstream media very much, if at all, but there are some really devastating things going on in Ethiopia at this moment that I felt it was important to bring to light. So let's get into it. What scares us most at this point is that we are only beginning to see the very tip of the iceberg, and already it is overwhelming. Recent conflict, displacement, a lack of access to healthcare, food, and water are among the reasons for a spiraling malnutrition crisis in northeast Ethiopia. This year, the number of severely malnourished children admitted to the facility has already exceeded the previous year's baseline by a factor of 3 to 4. Patient mortality rates are staggeringly high, exceeding 20% in some weeks. 35 children have died in the last 8 weeks alone, and more than 2/3 of those patients died within 48 hours of admission. Clearly, many people in Afar cannot access the very minimum levels of healthcare, food, and water necessary to sustain human life. This is due to a combination of recent conflict displacement, a lack of access to healthcare, food and water scarcity, combined with an insufficient humanitarian response. And that insufficient humanitarian response that's occurring in Ethiopia is directly linked to the war in Ukraine and the humanitarian aid. Very much like my video talking about Yemen, it's similar here in Ethiopia, that because of countries and economies starting to decline, they're not able to provide the level of humanitarian aid that they've normally been able to provide in these countries in previous years. And that is having very devastating effects on these countries and the people of these countries. Damaged, destroyed, abandoned, or under-resourced, it is reported that only 20% of health structures in Afar region are functional. At Dupti Hospital, more than 80% of malnourished children admitted for care have no previous access to healthcare before arriving to the referral hospital. Patients tell our teams that they struggle to access healthcare, food, clean water, or other basic needs, leading to increased levels of malnutrition and life-threatening illnesses. There is not enough food to eat. There is no drinking water. The house in which we are staying has no roof, so we have no shade, and we are exposed to the sun. Nearly 2/3 of malnourished children requiring hospitalization come from displaced families, driving up admission rates. In 2 days alone, we saw 41 children admitted to the pediatric ward with severe stomach infections because people are forced to drink from muddy puddles. I said this in a previous video that it just seems so sad and so crazy to me that we have the level of advanced technology that we have, and we still have people suffering to this level. It's really heartbreaking. And the fact that this is not being talked about on mainstream media just really shows the lack of care when it comes to reporting real information, because it's so selective, and it's also very hypocritical at times because so much right now has been focused on the people in Ukraine and the war in Ukraine, which isn't to be discounted, but they are not the only people being seriously affected by this war. And if anything, there are people suffering more drastically, more dramatically, as we're seeing here in Ethiopia. But again, they don't get the kind of airtime that the people of Ukraine get, which just frankly isn't fair. Hundreds of thousands of people are struggling to survive, not only in Afar, but also other parts of Ethiopia. In Warder Somali region, rains have finally started falling, but people are still experiencing the compounded challenges of food and water insecurity linked to an extended period of drought. And communities across the region warn of catastrophic drought, which is killing off livestock and other vital lifelines for survival, while water, food, and access to healthcare are often out of reach. And without an urgent upscale of the humanitarian response in Afar, many people already living through the horrors of conflict, displacement, and drought will be further pushed towards the brink of survival. In order to avoid further excess in illness and deaths as a consequence of the ongoing nutritional crisis in Afar and other parts of Ethiopia, the humanitarian community must act with urgency. So, again, very similar to the crisis that's going on in Yemen, Ethiopia, specifically in this area of Afar, is in desperate need of humanitarian aid. This is why the war in Ukraine really needs to end. So, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell. I will have links to the articles I used for this down in the description box below. And you can also check out the food crisis playlist that I have right here. Stay safe, take care, and remember to be kind to each other.